how much secrets you guys give out, the back end of negotiations, but is there a limit when you have a customer this like myself? Do you guys have a limit to where like you don't sell, or are there certain limits you guys push in order to get a sale?
Hey guys, welcome to the Troy Gramling podcast. As always, I am honored to have you come and hang out with us. I do want to remind you, if you haven't already, be sure and subscribe. We come out every Thursday morning with a new episode. We talk to interesting people. We talk about interesting topics. We really want to partner with you. Our greatest desire is for you to reach your potential. So if you haven't subscribed, be sure and do that. Click the little bell if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're on one of the audio podcast apps, we're glad to have you guys listening as well. And I want to tell you, if you haven't already heard, I got a book out, and it's actually about that very idea. It's about potential, because that's our desire. The Uncontainable Power of God Within You. You can get it at Amazon, you can get it at Barnes & Noble, you can get it at Walmart, Target, wherever it is that you shop. They're going to have a copy, and they just need to pick one up. Today, we are going to talk about how do you live out your faith? How do you move up the corporate ladder? We got a special guest that we're going to introduce in just a few moments. But before we get to that, live here in the studio, I have my middle son, Carson Lucas Gramling.
Yes, I'm excited to be back.
Yes, thank you for coming. Got your nice little hat on today.
I do. Hair was not done this morning, so hat was necessary.
Yeah, so anyways, I wanted to talk a little bit about that, about living out our faith. I know for us, because people have all these different ideas when it comes to what does it mean, what does faith mean, what's it mean to be a Christian, church, all those kind of things. Because we hear people, get up and win an award and thank God, and you're thinking, well, what's in their mind and what are people hearing? And as a result, a lot of folks are scared. They're scared to live out their faith. I know even for us, when it comes to TikTok, they won't accept our advertising. Like we try to maybe advertise the book a little bit, and they won't accept that. Now we have a channel, but they won't let us advertise that.
Right.
I know that when we were on a local TV station, we did an interview, and we talked about how all the proceeds from the book we're actually using for the next generation, because camps, especially camps, because they're really difficult here in South Florida, which is the campus from which we teach from. But anyways, they wouldn't use the subtitle, The Uncontainable Power of God Within You. They talk about potential, but
Interesting.
they were afraid of offending people, actually. How about, I know you lead our students here, and what's it like for our students when it comes to them, like living out their faith at school and that kind of thing?
Yeah, it seems like people are very counter the idea of Christianity. However, it's funny because they're still chasing the same things that Christianity has to offer. And so, I've really found that the best way to kind of tell people about your faith is by living it out, which is that, that old adage that is still to be true, which is, actions speak louder than words. And I think, the stats show that I believe 71% of people do not want to be talked to as they're going through their everyday life. And that's a very high number. About anything. They don't want to be bothered. They just want to do their thing. They don't want to be interacted with. And, so many relationships are now strictly online rather than physical. And so I think that there's, it's just the world kind of moving into an interesting space where it's changed the way that we share our faith or talk about our faith or live out our faith. It's really required us to do more than anything, making sure people see the fruits of what comes with our faith. But it can be challenging. Previously, if you were in, youth ministry, your goal would be, let's get into the schools. Let's get into schools. Let's go to the football games, the soccer games, whatever it may be. That's become very challenging in today's world. Very, very challenging. I actually went to a football game of a local high school, and all we wanted to do was hand out Gatorades. Not asking to pray with the kids or anything yet. Just want to hand out Gatorades, love on them. That was a challenge to get to happen. And yet, while we were out there, the coaches were cursing at kids, I mean, it was unbelievable what we were seeing. And it was, okay, we can do this, but we can't hand out Gatorades, you know? It's just so crazy how against, the idea of religion or faith the world has become.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's even focused on Christianity, where you can talk about other faiths
Absolutely.
and other aspects. But when it comes often, and not only Christianity, but oftentimes if someone is a Christ follower, they really run into difficulty. And then when you're out in the corporate culture and you're trying to get the promotion, you're trying to get the raise, and it's like, so how do I navigate this? You know,
Right.
I remember for me, and we're talking years ago when I was playing basketball, how do I live out my faith, which impacts what I do, where I go and how I talk and all those kind of things, without isolating myself.
Right.
Because that's not the goal. The goal is not to live alone.
Right.
I heard a phrase a long time ago that one's too small a number for greatness. And like you were saying, we live in a world where people are not used to interacting. And but I really think what you said is so true, and that is what we do can often open the door. And by that, I don't mean preaching. I just mean being kind, breaking the stereotype. I know for me, a lot of times being kind will cause people to ask questions that allow me to share,
Right.
Why I respond in a certain way, whether it's just with kindness or patience. Right. And then you also get to break stereotypes in the sense that, for me, it's like even with tattoos, I'm amazed at the number of times somebody will say something positive, about, because I have a lot of color, so they'll notice them and they'll say something. And then, the next question is always, so what do you do? They always think I'm like a rock star or something like that, or a criminal, I guess. But it allows me, when I say I'm a pastor, and then they'll ask more questions and actually get to talk about your faith, get to talk about what I do,
right,
and all those kind of things. And so sometimes we make it more difficult than it is.
Right.
I mean, back in the day when 20 years ago when I was a pastor, we'd come up on Thursday nights. We had Thursday night visitation, and we'd have a stack of cards, and then we'd go visit people.
Right.
Where today, people live in gated communities, and often it's difficult to even get to their home.
Right.
Unless you're invited.
Right.
So we actually have a special guest. We have Al Guillen, who is the manager of a Mercedes, right? Mercedes is a corporate culture, and he's worked his way up from being just a salesperson to being a general manager, which is a big position when you think about motivating the sales staff, dealing with the finance end of it, and especially a brand like Mercedes that has a high brand recognition. And so we got to talk with him, and I want you to hear what he had to say about how he lives out his faith, the impact his faith has had. And I think that makes a difference, that it's real.
Yeah.
It's not fake. It's not religion.
Right.
You know what I mean? That, like, I'm trying to make God happy by talking about my faith, as opposed to, it's kind of like on YouTube. I don't know if you guys are watching or listening today to the podcast, but there are influencers that are, pushing something, kind of like when I talk about the book. And there's a difference in me talking about the book as something I've written, something I believe in, something I think will really help people, as opposed to just talking about the book because somebody is paying me to talk about the book.
Right.
And I think sometimes when we talk about our faith, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
And so we're going to go to Al, and we're going to hear about his experience and how it's impacted his life, and then how he's worked his way up in the corporate ladder. And I think it's a great discussion. So let's go hear from Al.
Thanks for having me, Pastor. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So you were there in Orlando at Mercedes. And what I thought we'd do is spend a little bit of time of talking. You're a part of a large organization. Do you know how many dealerships total AutoNation has?
We have over 260 rooftops.
Wow. That's a lot in today's. Now, are car dealerships today still primarily, like you said, rooftops, or are there a lot of online dealerships, or is that not a thing?
We call it rooftops because not only do we own car dealerships, but we also own body shops.
Ah, okay.
And they're part of the organization as well. We do not have any off-site locations yet. All of our online sales are still done directly to the store.
Now, are most of the sales sold cars or in the body shop?
No, no. The statistic for the rooftops is just for body shop purposes in regards to ownership, how many different businesses we own. All of the collision centers are standalone collision centers. They just usually are strategically located somewhere in the vicinity of our stores.
Okay.
So that if a customer comes into our service department and needs a collision repair, we have the ability to transfer that vehicle over to get it fixed.
Well, okay. So let me ask you this then. Percentage wise, and I don't know what is free information and what's not. So you can always say, I can't answer that. I plead the fifth. But is percentage wise, how much of the total income is service versus car sales?
Oh, well, you kind of usually, ideally, if your service department could make enough to pay for the bills, that's usually a very successful dealership because then everything that the sales department earns is profitability. But the concept varies. Some stores are heavy on service, not so heavy on sales. Some stores are heavy on sales, not so heavy on service. So ideally, you want to kind of build both at the same time. A 50-50 split would be the best recipe for that.
And how much is when it comes to, oh, you know what? We also have Pastor Danny with us today. I just kind of moved on along, forgot all about him down there on the bottom of the screen. Pastor Danny, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you for having me.
Pastor Danny's been a part of Potential Church for how long now, my friend?
Man, it's been 17 years already. Yeah.
17 years. Such a young man for so many years.
You see that?
As a young man, a husband and a father and a grandfather.
I am. That last statement makes me feel old.
Yes. Well, you are old.
I'm young at heart.
So anyways, we were talking about because I'm kind of intrigued, to be honest, car shopping makes me nervous. And it always has. My wife's really good at it. Pastor Danny's very good at it. And I'm not very good. I'm good for the cars. Listen, if you had more people like me, Al, you would make a lot more money. Because I'm good for the car salesman. But what percentage do you shoot for? Like, let's say, of all the cars you sell, what percentage of those cars ideally do you get to do service on? In other words, instead of going to Al's muffler shop, they stay with the dealer. Is there a percentage you guys shoot for, or is that just totally separate in some way, or?
Well, traditionally we always shoot for 100%. We sell you a car, that's where our relationship starts with you. We want to continue that on through service, and then obviously make that a constant circle where it's a rinse repeat. Every time you're going to buy a car, you go back to the store. While you're servicing it, you stay at the same store. We ran into a little bit of an issue with that during COVID because obviously we didn't have any new cars to sell. So we kind of lost a little bit of that control by people just going to the independents, the regular car oil change locations and things of that pretense, because their vehicles weren't under warranty anymore. If we're a new car dealer, so the warranty kind of covers the vehicle and most of the expenses that you would run into as a consumer. So it would be in your best interest to obviously bring it to us to service your vehicle. So we've got that corner, that customer kind of cornered.
Right.
They're obviously going to bring it to us because it's not going to cost them anything if it's under warranty. It's that customer that's out of warranty or that pre-owned vehicle customer that you really want to get in here. And hopefully we did a really good job of selling them extended warranty coverage and so on and so forth, which they can still use at our dealership. And we can continue on with that relationship. So to answer your question, we shoot for 100%.
Okay. So now when did you guys change the names from used car salespeople to pre-owned car sales?
I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. It's kind of like it's sort of like a blur. I know when I started selling cars, I was a used car salesperson. But that was in the 90s. It was a long time ago. I guess we tried to clean up our act a little bit along the way and give ourselves a different title.
That's it. The I will admit pre-owned sounds, I'd rather have pre-owned than I would used, so.
Yeah, it does sound a lot better, right?
It does for sure. Now, so AutoNation has all of these different dealerships. And again, I'm just asking, but what percentage of Mercedes buyers rebuy at the same dealers? Like how many repeat customers? Do you keep 70% if I go, or higher or lower? Or?
Again, Pastor, the good stores do a really good job of retaining as many customers as they possibly can. It's tough to control conquest sales.
Right.
We're always trying to go after the competitors' clients. That's how you grow business, and you go after those customers all the time. So your first goal is to try to make sure you keep your own customers, and that usually is the first priority. And then on top of that, anytime through service that you can get somebody who didn't buy a car from you but is servicing with you, you obviously want to try to get them their information transferred over to the sales department, so we can obviously, offer them maybe an appraisal on their vehicle while it's in service, and try to entice them to trade in the vehicle at your store instead of the store they bought from. So it's kind of like a very conquest kind of environment where you want to make sure you keep your own customers, but you definitely want to try to go after your competitors as well.
Now, I would think that being a Mercedes dealer now, that you're at the top of the aspirational, desires of people, as far as when it comes to cars, other than just the hyper type cars. But, whereas if you're selling a Honda, you know what I mean, and people want to continue to move up whatever we might call that, whereas a Mercedes, you're kind of at the top of that aspirational purchase that people might make, as far as, like, I have succeeded in the sense I'm buying a Mercedes now as opposed to maybe a different brand. Does that make it, I guess, more challenging? Or because do you guys find yourself in competition with other brands within the AutoNation umbrella? You know what I mean?
Well, we definitely do, because so if you ever go to any of our Mercedes-Benz stores, you won't see AutoNation anywhere. That's a manufacturer franchise agreement. We can't change the signage. Whereas other manufacturers are a little bit more lenient to that. So if you go up and down the strip there in Cooper City or Pines, you go down Pines Boulevard there, you're going to see there's going to be a lot of AutoNation stores, and they're AutoNation because they say so. AutoNation Chevrolet, AutoNation CDG, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram. But the Highline stores, they're a little bit not as flexible. So our Mercedes-Benz stores will always say Mercedes-Benz of whatever location it's at. You will never see AutoNation there. So with that being said, we do get a lot of that because they don't know we're the same company. So they'll go to, even right there in Florida, we have 6 stores in between Broward and Dade County, and they don't know that we're owned by the same company. So they'll go to Miami and get some numbers and then show up in Pembroke Pines and try to compare numbers. So it's like I said, it's a very competitive environment. But yeah, we do get a lot of folks trying to, they think they've reached a certain level of success in their lives that they can now afford a more expensive vehicle, and that just puts us on their shopping list, so to speak. And it doesn't stop anybody from coming in who probably doesn't or can't really afford the car, but they still want to, they want to aspire, they want to have something to look forward to, so they do come in and they do look at the car and put it on their to-do list, so to speak. So we kind of get a little bit of both. We do get the ones that are first timers, which we welcome, and then we obviously have a lot of our repeat customers, which we know them very well. We've spoiled them, and we have to continue to do that to own them, because if not, the competition is definitely very, very aggressive at that.
So I want to talk a little bit about electric cars, and Pastor Danny, if you have anything to add along the way. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, you're a part of a large company, and as a managing that whole dealership there, because a lot of folks, there's some folks who start their career and their whole goal is to work for themselves, but most people work as part of an organization, and a lot of times people think that, well, the main reason I haven't succeeded is because I haven't been given opportunity. What are some of the things that you've not only experienced in your own life, but some things that you've watched with other folks within the company that that allow you to progress or to continue to move up, the company ladder, you might say, as opposed to those things that, keep people from progressing up?
Um, you know, Pastor, I'll be honest with you. I gave a lot of thought to that overnight when I knew I was going to be on with you guys today. I think I've been in the business for over 30 years. I think in my early days in the car business, I was fortunate and blessed to be in line with some pretty talented sales managers who it wasn't a faith thing, or they weren't trying to preach to me or anything. They were just giving me very positive motivational messages and a certain way to go about my days. So every day when I showed up to work, I would try to have as productive a day as possible. It had nothing to do with, again, faith or anything. It was literally just sales ability, right? You got talent, okay? Let's see it. Let's see that gift of gab, so to speak, and come to work every day real positive and try to what we used to call make you don't get a second chance at a first impression is the common phrase that we use. And that was, for me personally, that hit hard for me because it enabled me to realize the importance of actually doing that. I mean, I soon found myself in a sales environment in Jersey City, New Jersey, working for a very large dealer with another 30, 40 sales consultants on the floor. And it was made very clear to me at the very beginning in my career that, I was just one of many. So what was I going to do different to be able to convince complete strangers that were walking into my store uninvited? I didn't call them. They just showed up on their own. And, what was I going to do to get them, entice them, and get them to the point that they like me and the car so much that they're going to give me, whatever money they have to buy a car today. And it was something that made the whole thing a little easier for me to understand. And it gave me a target every morning when I got to work on what I was going to try to do with this complete stranger. And by the 2, 3, 4 hours later, hopefully make them a friend and a part of my portfolio and grow my business. And I used those terms that I was taught to help me focus. And I was in my 20s, and I didn't, I was raised Roman Catholic, and I obviously stopped going to church at that time, and I was too busy working, so I didn't have any time to do anything but work. And I was pretty much convinced that I was the reason why all this was happening. And I would go to work and I'd make some jokes and I'd make them laugh. And the next thing you know, we're selling cars and things are happening, and I'm doing well, and I'm trying to move up the ladder, and I'm using that same mentality and philosophy and what I was taught to continue moving up the ladder. And then as you become a manager, now you're responsible to kind of imprint yourself on 6 other sales consultants or 8 sales consultants, and now you're just basically teaching them what you were taught, and hopefully it influences them the same way. And I did that for quite a bit of time in my career. And then in 97, we relocated from New Jersey down to South Florida. And we had just had my daughter, and in 1999 and 2000, she was diagnosed with autism. And it was a real difficult time for us, me and my late wife Linda, because we were relatively young. We'd never heard anything about that, and I really needed to decide what I was going to do with my future in regards to was I going to stay selling cars? Was I going to go do something else so I could be at home more? And we decided that I was going to be the one to continue to work, and she was going to be the one to monitor Nina, my daughter, as she was going through it, and what would that look like. And as time would have it, then my son's born, and he has it as well. So now we have 2 kids with autism, and it starts to affect everybody in the household. So the place is really going backwards, right? Really stressful. Fortunately, I had help. I had my parents and my in-laws, so they're very supportive. But I kind of found myself working more hours and working more time just so that I wouldn't have to go home and deal with the unknown issue that was going on in my house. And it started affecting everybody. It started affecting myself, my relationship with Linda. She got diagnosed with lupus, and all this started going on. And then somehow, some way, she saw you on TV one day and said, "Hey, I think we need to go see this pastor. He seems to understand me." And I said, "Wow, hopefully if he understands you, we got to go see him because it's quite a difficult time for anybody to understand her at the time." And that is the truth. And we went to see you, and I remember taking in your sermon and everything that you were talking about, and it was at that moment in time that I realized that no matter how hard I worked, no matter how many hours I put in, I wasn't going to be able to do anything on my own. And until that day, I thought I was fully in charge and 100% in control of everything that was going on, which obviously I wasn't. If you just remember what I just told you, what was going on in my house, I could have worked 80-hour weeks. It doesn't matter. I wasn't going to change anything that's going on in my house. So I kind of look back at what I started my career believing, which was, being in the right mentality, being in the right positive state of mind so that I can make a really good impression on that customer the first time around. And that evolved into, nope, I don't have anything to do with that. God gave me this gift that I'm able to do this and have fun with my customers and sell myself in my dealership. What I need to do is realize, number one, that I'm not responsible for that. God's responsible for that. He gave me this gift. And the second thing I had to realize was I needed to put myself in a position where when God decided to pass favor in my direction, I was there. And it was no guarantee when it would happen. And it made so much sense in my business because I used to teach my sales consultants that, you're going to have good days and bad days. You have to go home at night. If you didn't sell a car, go to bed, come back the next day and start fresh all over again. Because that next customer that comes in, who's a complete stranger, has nothing to do with what happened the day before. And I associated that with you have to put yourself in the right path so that it may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but maybe on the third day, you sell 2 cars. And I took it to basically say, this is the way God's going to work for me. He's going to basically put favor in my direction. I just got to make sure I'm there. And I got to make sure I'm good. I'm positive. I'm motivating my team. We're high-fiving. We're sending the right message. We're taking care of customers. Whether they buy or don't buy doesn't matter because that's not what we're there for. We're there to support them. We're there to teach them. We're there to guide them and advise them on what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And by doing that service, by giving that information and helping people, whether they bought or didn't buy, it wasn't the deal breaker. And this is how I moved forward from what we were at. And the next thing things are starting to work out well. Then it goes into remission. I get promoted and things start getting better. I think just so that I could always remain clear on what the vision was, I guess somewhere along that way, I might have gotten a little off track. And Linda might have gotten sick again, and she ended up going to the hospital again. And the kids were acting up a little bit, or whatever the case was. And I went into me mode again, and I started doing me. And I stopped going to see Pastor Troy, and I forgot about how I got here. And fortunately for me, I got a job literally a couple blocks away from the location at Cooper City. And I started making it an every Saturday afternoon thing. So I would go and see the Saturday sermon at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and then I head back to the store to close it out. But that revisit for me once a week got me grounded again. It got me back to where I needed to be, where it basically led to more promotions, not just for myself, but very proud to say that I was able to hire and promote many sales consultants and make them finance managers and sales managers, and some of them have moved on to be general managers. So it's just this constant rinse and repeat mechanism that now I find myself in, and I'm very blessed to be in, where it's just understanding and making sure I get everybody with the same principles that I started with, and just giving them a reality check that they are good enough to succeed. They just have to put themselves in the right mindset, and they can't get frustrated. And eventually, if you believe in yourself and you do good by others, and you have this servant mentality, that it's not if I don't sell a car, I'm gonna have a bad day. No, if you don't sell a car, you're gonna follow up that customer, and you're gonna hopefully sell them a car in a couple of days, and good things will happen. And the next thing you know, they're selling cars, and they're starting to make some money, and they're making money for their family, and they're able to go on better vacations. And then I tell them, I say, listen, now that you're doing this, you got to make sure you continue to do this without getting too specific with them, because I don't know what their beliefs are or not.
Right.
But just using my sales motto, right? The never get a second chance at a first opinion. That for me is essential, and I preach that almost every other Saturday on my sales meetings with you guys, because believe it or not, we have to talk about it all the time because it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah,
That's good.
So do you see when you see a young guy or young gal come in and you see yourself in them, you see that they think it's themselves, they put a lot of weight on themselves, you know, they do, if they don't sell a car, they go home. If they sell 3 cars, they kind of puff out their chest. Is there something you're able to do to help steer them, or do you just kind of say, I'm going to be there when they fall on their, when they come to the realization it's more than just themselves? How do you deal when you kind of see a young yourself in somebody?
It's funny you say that, Pastor, because I know that that happens to me more than I care to admit. But it's a fact of life in the car business, and this new generation, they're a little different than the older generation. So you have to go about it from a different perspective. But I've learned to be a much better listener.
Mm-hmm.
I keep doing my same story, and I keep supporting, and I keep wanting to lead and show them what it takes to get the job done. And it's not easy. So you're going to have to put in some work. And then I'm helping them. If they were not successful today, I'm following up with them the next day, and so on and so forth. I'm getting involved with their customers. It's part of my job as the newer generation of general managers, I guess, that compared to the traditional ones that when I started the business, I'm actually very much involved. All of our general managers are. Our organization has our GMs very much on the front of all of our stores, whether it's service or sales. So we're very much involved. So you'll see us all the time dealing with customer scenarios, negotiations, car repairs, whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter. We have to be able to make ourselves responsible for all the aspects of it. And in doing so, I think we set the right example for everybody to understand that nobody's bigger than anything enough to take care of the customers. Mm-hmm. And if I'm doing it, then obviously they see that, well, then maybe I should do it too. I went to appraise a car the other day, and the car didn't have any air conditioning. And that's not a good thing. Especially in South Florida. So obviously I'm wearing a suit and tie, and after about 30 minutes in this car, I came out and it looked like I got caught in a rainstorm. And I was the topic of laughter. Everybody was laughing at the big boss, right? But I laughed it off. I told them, I said, listen, hey, I'm going to send you guys my dry cleaning bill for me having to appraise your car, But next time, give me the heads up. There's no air conditioning. I appreciate it,
Oh, that is, I can just see that for sure. No matter what business somebody's in, I'm sure there are times where they get discouraged, whether they go a week or in the car business without selling cars, or whatever it is they're involved in, people get discouraged. And in my experience, in just dealing with people, often that's the thing that separates those who succeed and those who don't, is how they handle discouragement. And so what are some of the things that you've done, or that you encourage even your salespeople when they get discouraged and think about quitting?
That's a great question, Pastor. Automotive sales is probably the highest risk reward retail career that I know of. And it's not something that we obviously do a really good job advertising. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was in high school, nobody came to our job forum wanting to sell cars at the local car dealership. So it's not something that you're planning for as far as, college and stuff like that. Right. So we do have a lot of situations where, we've got some individuals that come to the table, they get hired. They get hired because they think they can sell, but they've never sold automobiles, which is a very highly negotiated environment. Our structure, even though there's different variations of it within the organizations, some car dealerships, have different pay plans to recruit different kind of sales consultants. But in the traditional environment, which is what I find myself in, we're pretty much 100% commission based. So it's a high risk, high reward environment. And, for most of the staff here, that's exactly what they want. They wouldn't want anything less because they do believe that they can successfully sell and make quite a bit of money on a monthly basis and then do it month after month after month. But it's hard. And a lot of the new hires that we're doing, that we're bringing in now, they've got different options today. The job environment is not the same as it was when you and I were starting out.
Right.
We were just happy to have a job, and we did whatever they told us, and we would kind of go about it, whatever it took to be successful until we were successful, or they threw us out, one or the other. Nowadays, they have different options. So it's important to listen to them. It's important to work with them on a weekly basis. I work with my sales management team here at the store to track their sales consultants on a weekly basis and report back to me and let me know what they're doing on a weekly basis, which I get reported on all the time. And I kind of make sure that if I have somebody who is not doing that well, we don't wait till the third week of the month to start talking to them. That's something that I can already see is about to happen in the first week of the month, because you forecast for the month, but you break it down week by week. So if they start off poorly, that's when we want to bring them in and see what they've done. And we kind of do a deep dive. How many customers have you talked to? What happened with those customers? Did we sell them? Did we not sell them? If we didn't sell them, what kind of follow-up have we done? So there's a lot of work behind the scenes that we do to try to assist. And as the general manager of the store, I think it's super important that I be part of that conversation. I don't want to be I don't want any part of the conversation when it's too late. I want any part of the conversation when we still have time. And in doing that, you gain a lot of loyalty from your staff because they see that you care. If you spend the time with them and you help them, and all of a sudden what you showed them or what you told them to do works, then all of a sudden now it's like the light is at the end of the tunnel and you're back on your feet again. I think that's key. I think a lot of our training that my organization has given us throughout the years, and the managers that I've had work for me have instilled that upon me. So that's the kind of style that I bring to the table, and hope that I can continue to grow and turn sales consultants around when they're not doing well. If you do have a sales consultant who's doing bad, well, we don't just fire them. We do work with them for several months.
Right.
And by then they either have made up their mind that they're really not good at this, or we've been able to teach them how to be good.
Right. How do you, one last question, is when you think about the corporate world, people just, corporations only care about money. That's in people's minds. And going on what you just shared, how do you deal with the struggle, the temptation, whatever word you want to use, of truly caring about your sales consultants and, seeing them succeed and happy and, fulfilling their lives, and the pressure for numbers and the end result? Is there anything that you've discovered that kind of helps you keep the people, the heart, the compassion in the business world?
The only thing that's worked for me, Pastor Troy, and I'm not sure if there's other versions out there. I'm sure there is. There's a lot of great success stories of general managers and their leadership skills and what they do to lead their staff on a monthly basis. The only thing that's ever worked for me is to be who I am, and not to disguise that. I'm a joker. I love having fun. I love laughing. I'm usually the loudest one in the showroom floor, which it gets a little bit of a curious look from my customers every once in a while. But I think if I set the tone for what I want their day-to-day to look like, I want them to have fun, but I want them to be serious at the same time. I want them to take their job serious. I want them to be successful. But that doesn't mean you can't laugh and you can't smile and you can't have a good time. And we've got our Saturday meetings or rah-rah meetings, and we got high fives all over the place. And every once in a while, I'll go on the showroom floor and I'll feel it's a little stagnant, so I'll purposely start making some commotion just to get people riled up. And just be there, be present. Don't be the guy in the back office. Be visible. I love walking my service department, and when I get there and I walk in the morning and I scare them by saying good morning and afternoon because they're busy fixing cars, but they know I'm here. And if they want anything, and they want to talk to me, our company sponsors an open door policy with the general managers. They have the right to come in and talk to us at any time. And I believe in that policy wholeheartedly. I think it's super important for everybody that works for you to not be afraid to come and talk to you with any concern they have. I mean, really, we could be serious. It could be something off, not having to do with work at all. It could be something about the family and kids. Listen, we're leaders for a reason, and I believe wholeheartedly that God has given me the gift to do what I do with a purpose. So if a day goes by that I don't really do something like that, I kind of go home a little saddened because it wasn't that kind of a memorable day. So then those happen every once in a while, especially with the rain that we've got in June. So, I'll come back the next day with a mission. I'll go chase somebody down just to rattle them up a little bit. But yeah, the only thing that works for me is to get involved. That's it.
I like what you said, be present, and we're out of time, but we didn't get to talk about your number one baseball team when you were in high school. And how many marathons have you run?
5.
5 marathons. So that whole idea of being present is in every aspect of your life. And I think that's just great advice for all of us, whether we're the general manager, whether we're just getting started, we're the husband, the wife, the friend, to just wherever you are, be present. That's great. That's just great insight and great advice. And it sounds simple, but it's easy to be distracted by everything that's going on in the world.
Yes, sir.
That's for sure.
I like what he said.
Go ahead, Pastor Danny.
Pastor, I've been quiet here because you guys have been doing a lot of the talking, but talk about being present, but he also mentioned, being himself, authentic. I think about authenticity. And that's another key factor. The fact that you care, you're authentic, you're the loudest guy. You're a jokester, that definitely adds, inspires and motivates people. Now, I know we're out of time, Pastor, but I wanted to know some of the inside track, like how, I don't know how much secrets you guys give out, the back end of negotiations, but is there a limit when you have a customer this like myself? Do you guys have a limit to where like you don't sell, or are there certain limits you guys push in order to get a sale?
We push. It's all negotiable for the most part. So it all depends on the product, to be quite honest with you. I think most stores will agree that they have various objectives that they have to hit. So, if you have certain cars that are targeted volume pieces, I think you're going to be a little bit more willing to do something a little more aggressive on cars like that, because you have to sell X amount of them, than you would on the one-offs. In our particular case, we have the AMGs, which Pastor Troy loves near and dear to his heart. When you talk about a car like that are one-offs, right? That are select kind of vehicles, you're probably not going to get as aggressive on those, and you're probably going to get told so several times, and you're going to realize that and hopefully move on or not. But I think we're in a different environment today, especially in the luxury car line business, where maybe 15, 20 years ago, it was non-negotiated, and we were not in the volume business. Now we're heavily negotiated and in the volume business. So to answer your question, I would throw out any offer that you have, Dan, Pastor Dan, when you're trying to buy a car. I mean, what's the worst thing you could say? No.
So let me ask you, do you have a Maybach for $35,000?
No.
Pastor, we can get it for 39. We'll talk offline.
Al,
awesome.
Thanks so much for the time, and I appreciate what you do. I appreciate the heart and spirit in which you do it, and the number of lives that you've impacted, over all your times there involved in a profession that's probably not respected for as difficult as it is, and as many lives that it impacts in a positive way. I mean, there's so many folks who get their start, at different car dealerships and selling cars. And I grew up in a little small town in Paragould, and everybody was a pre-owned car salesman. They had cars in their front yard. I mean, it was a pre-owned car salesman's delight. So, but I appreciate what you do and the way in which you do it. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Pastor Dan. Thank you, Pastor Troy. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
I really enjoyed that conversation. And I was thinking, Potential Church is a decent sized church. And I know even one of our pastors in the student ministry started out just attending the church, then kind of became a volunteer, and long before he ever felt the nudge into ministry as a pastor. What was it that you saw in him that he did that allowed him to kind of rise up in our culture?
Yeah, I think for him, it's kind of like, you're talking about Pastor Nick, who, like you said, works in the youth ministry, and he I think just willing to jump into tough situations, willingness to learn, willingness to show up, straight out of work. There was a season where he didn't have a job and was willing to pick up Uber shifts outside of the time that we were here at the church doing ministry, just so that he could have that time here. And so for me, the biggest thing is just willingness. I think that if someone is willing to go on the journey, there's no limit to what they can be used for.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good thing for us to maybe talk about in the future sometime. It's just to talk about how do we progress, how do we grow, and live our dreams, you might say.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode. I do want to remind you, if you haven't, be sure and subscribe and even share this episode. You probably know some folks who are struggling. Maybe they've just trusted Christ and it's like, how do I live out my faith? Or maybe they're trying to figure out how do they move up in a corporate type culture. We live in a day where there's lots of entrepreneurs and church planners and starters, but the vast majority of us are working in the culture of whether it's a church or whether it's a business with other people. And it's like, how do we move up the ladder per se? So anyway, share it with somebody. Don't forget, the book is out. I'd love for you to pick up a copy. We talk about it in here as well because Moses raised up Joshua, and Joshua actually took the folks into the promised land. And so I really think that it can make a positive impact on your life. You can pick it up wherever books are sold. And then also, we do a live stream every Sunday night at 7 o'clock. It's live. We have fun.
Yep.
We talk about serious things. We play some games, and we always have a giveaway.
Absolutely.
So you can check that out on the channel, YouTube channel, under my name. We'll see you next Thursday when we drop the next episode. I'm so glad you tuned in. Have an incredible day, and we'll catch you next time.